everything is better when we are side by side. Hey, side by side, side by side, side by side. Hey, side by side, when we are side by side.
Hey, E.
Hey, T. What's up, girl?
What's up, girl? Nothing. I'm excited to be here. I'm always excited. Whenever we turn this mic on, I am so thankful that we get to do this. We have been talking to guests and getting stories and having these conversations, not just when the mic is on, but behind the scenes, that are just incredibly wrecking me, convicting me, pushing me closer to God. Communion is the gift that keeps on giving.
It is, girl. It really is.
Yeah.
And speaking of gifts that keep giving, our guest today is one of my really dear friends who John and I met when we moved to St. Augustine, and he became a part of our family, and we love him so much. And so I'm so excited that I've gotten to introduce yet another incredible person to UT and now to this community of Come.Union. So Berm Dorante, I never called you by your last name, so that's always fun. He's just Berm to our family. But Berm is our guest today. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Berm. Berm's story is a journey of resilience and of faith and of the healing power of worship and community. He was born to Haitian parents, and his early encounters with church and music happened in Kansas City, and that laid the groundwork for his deep connection to his faith. Life took a turn when his family moved from Kansas City to Jacksonville, Florida. Whoop, whoop. So glad he moved to Jacksonville during his fourth grade year. And despite those challenges that came with that move, the different influences that were not so great in his life, including financial hardships and emotional distance from his family even, Berm found peace in his faith. And he would spend nights up, even in the midst of the hard, just listening to music, listening specifically to Christian music and worship. And that became a true refuge in his life. And it really sparked his lifelong love for singing and leading worship. Throughout his growing up years, Berm discovered his talent and passion for singing and came to a pretty big realization when he was in a talent show in 8th grade. And that really steered him and reignited this passion for singing, specifically worship. And it marked the beginning of that journey for him, where Berm went on to work at churches, go to ministry school, and learn all about the art of worship, and even spend time in youth ministry as well. A really important moment of Berm's life through all of his years of being a part of leading worship at churches and really cultivating that gift is God used that gift of leading worship to bring reconciliation with his family during a Good Friday service. And that really deepened his understanding of forgiveness and faith. Berm's journey within these communities of faith in the different churches all over Northeast Florida were really filled with moments of incredible growth, really deep worship, and he was surrounded by incredible and supportive community. And yet he also faced really difficult moments and really difficult times in the midst of that prompted him to really reassess his role in the church and what did that look like. Despite these challenges, Berm really chose to focus on healing and growth. He celebrating those victories and transformations that came through his faith, even in the midst of challenges. He was wanting to seek a new beginning and seek out what did God really have for his life. And in August of this past year, 2023, Berm made the decision with the Lord to move to Nashville, Tennessee. That decision marked a pivotal step towards independence, healing, and embracing new opportunities that God had for him. Nashville brought Berm a sense of community and purpose. It renewed his commitment to worship and renewed and inspired this heart for service in ways that really resonated more deeply in his heart. It has been time for Berm to lead worship in various capacities all over the city of Nashville and share his musical talent and gift, but really, truly his heart. This period has also allowed him time to really confront and heal from past ministry hurt. and be surrounded by a supportive community that will value him for who he really is beyond his musical talent. Throughout his journey, Berm's relationship with worship has not only endured, but it has flourished and grown, and it's rooted in trials and triumphs of his upbringing and all that God has done in his life, from facing rejection and misunderstanding to finding his sanctuary in music and in worship. It has been both his refuge and an expression of faith, and his story is really a testament to the life-saving and transformative power of worship in his life and the ways that God has used that to heal him. Berm's story is more than just a personal journey. It's a reflection of the complexities of faith, the beauty of redemption, and the enduring power of worship to navigate the storms of life that emerge and yet still be grateful and have a life that is dedicated to service. So, my friends, let's welcome Berm Dorante to the show. Hi, Berm.
What's up, guys? I'm so honored to be here. This is my first podcast, so I'm really honored that this is the one that I got to do with fam from Florida. So
Yes.
it's amazing.
Hey, listen, you heard it here first. First podcast. Berm will be a household name. So we are early in the game. Just saying, when you're looking through the internet for interviews, because there will be plenty. Communion was first.
That's fun. That's
Community
funny.
first.
Yes. Well, and y'all,
Yes.
he is a really important person in John and I's story of moving to Florida, because Berm kind of just showed up literally at our house one day. We used to have college kids come over and 20-somethings come over, and Berm showed up at our house that day. And from that point on, he just became one of our really good friends. And we went on trips together. He was at our house all the time. We adore him, and he feels like a little brother to me. And so, Berm, like, truly, you know, I love you, and John loves you so much. And so I'm just excited for the world to hear your heart and who you are and how God has used your story, because he writes the best stories. God really does. So, yeah, so excited. Thanks for saying yes to doing this, my friend.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
crazy. I feel like this is the first time that I've publicly shared like my story with everyone. And so I think this is going to be really special.
Yeah, our guests are in for a real treat. Well, we like to lighten it up a little bit when we start. And so we always have an icebreaker question. So E told me that you're a bit of a sneakerhead, which speaks to, my previous life, and your kick game is strong. So the icebreaker question is, what are your grills? Your favorite pair of kicks that you're like, gotta have them, gotta get my hands on them, already in my collection. What are they?
Yeah. I think the ones that are already in my collection were probably the top pairs. My Jordan 1 Lost and Founds, my Chicago's. I didn't think I'd ever be able to own a pair of Chicago's, but to be able to get those that was really special. And then the Jordan 3 White Cements are a big one. I probably wear those more than anything else. But a shoe that I don't have yet that I really hope comes out again, because they haven't dropped since 2013, is the Jordan 5 Grapes. The one that Will Smith had on like during Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It was like, I've loved this shoe for so long, and I just want my chance to own a pair.
Oh, that's a classic. Like the all white with like the purple
Right.
and the teal.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
it was like one of those good combos where you're like, oh, that just
Right.
works. Yeah.
It's so
Oh, that's
fire.
a good one.
And
That's a
meanwhile,
good one.
I'm just over here dying laughing because I have no idea what the heck you guys are talking about. So every podcast has a title, Berm, and we let our guests title their own episode because it's your story. So if you were going to title this podcast, what would that title be?
Yeah, I think it would be, for me, how worship changed my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
I
good.
think that sounds like it's it.
It's good.
That's good.
I like it.
That's good. Well, I love that that is your title, because as we've been preparing for you to be a guest, I shamelessly will say I have been stalking your Instagram and listening to you worship, and it's ministered to me. You have a beautiful voice and such a gift, and so I'm excited to just get into your story. So let's just dive in. So you clearly have like these deep, deep roots in worship, and like you said, it changed your life and saved your life in so many ways. Aaron mentioned that you grew up in church in Kansas City and then made your way to Florida. And during that time, music had this incredible influence on you when you were experiencing maybe a lot of change, a lot of turmoil, a lot of transformation, a lot of dysfunction in your life. So what was the dynamic that was going on in your family? What role did church play? And then how did worship begin early on in your life, save you or change you?
Yeah, I think starting out, like some of my earliest moments in the presence of God, were definitely in Kansas City, but I was also just very young then. But it really came whenever I got saved in fourth grade. Just remember being overcome with the presence of God and bawling my eyes out and being taken to the back and being prayed over. And from that moment, I remember like buying my first Toby Mac CD and that just being someone I really connected with when he was coming out with songs like Made to Love and I'm For You and Diversity and these things that were just so mind blowing to me at the time. There's that side of I just loved music, but I think it just hit a bit different when my upbringing was a little bit different than how a traditional upbringing are. Like I said, my parents are Haitian, and they moved from Haiti in their like 20s and 30s, dad being older and mom being younger. But it was one of those things where they truly did the best they could. But from the emotional side, there was just a bit of a disconnect when it came to being raised up. My dad, for a while, in middle and high school, like went through a pretty dark season when it came to voodoo and witchcraft and things of that sort, because that's just how the culture is in Haiti, and he just kind of adopted that. So through that, it just made for a really strained relationship between us because I'm loving the Lord and he's not really about the Lord anymore, and that's putting a strain on our relationship. When we're insecure, we say things we don't mean. So I'm constantly being just belittled and different, just being attacked in different ways, verbal abuse and things like that were just really hard to grow up with. In that, church was my refuge. Church was the thing that I ran to when things were going rough at home, when I was being belittled or verbally abused at home. I had to run to something, and people run to things. And I think God was intentional when I first moved to Jacksonville. I was walking distance from my church, so I'd literally run there, and that was my place of refuge. Youth group didn't start till like 7. I would get there at like 4:00 and just stay there and sit there. And so I just remember just always just living and loving the house of God as a way to get away from some of this dysfunction from my family at home. There was many moments where I would be so upset with my parents. We've had our argument, like we're going at it, and then I'd be crying myself to sleep. And I'm like, God, what is going on? I'm seeing other families and other parents, and that's not my upbringing. That's not my story. Every single time I'd be crying in those moments, there would always be worship music playing. And in those moments, the Holy Spirit would just bring this wave of peace. And it would literally knock me out. Like I'd literally fall asleep. I'd wake up the next day and be totally fine. So I feel like from an early age, I just felt the presence of God in the way that probably most people didn't. I couldn't deny that he wasn't real because I felt like in those moments he was raising me. He was taking care of me. He was literally wiping the tears away. There's like there's a song that Jeremy Camp sings. It was just like my lifeline in moments. He'd be like, there will be a day with no more fears, no more pain, no more tears. In those moments, the tears would stop and the peace of God would come and I'd be knocked out. It would be like God's hug, just and in the sense of like, he's got me.
Yeah.
And it was okay. So I relied on that.
I am always in awe of people that have the gift to sing because y'all know, and if you listen to our podcast, you know I cannot sing well. I can sing, just not well. And so whenever people can sing, I'm like, you better use that thing.
I love it. I always say everyone can sing. Some voices just sound different than others. That's all. But everyone can sing.
There we go.
Okay. Berm, you have this incredible relationship early on with the church in Kansas City. Then you move to Jacksonville. You're talking about running to the church. Literally, it's a refuge for you. And then there was also a youth pastor at that time in your life that really walked alongside you. So tell us about that youth pastor and the role that she and her family played in your life during those years?
Yeah. In high school, as I was trying to figure out this whole worship thing at this point, feeling like I'm called in the ministry, I have this youth pastor that comes into my life. And she just be like, I don't even call her like I call her Mama Jen. Like she's literally like my mom. I guess to this day I still call her Mama. Because she just came in at a time where my home life is still so broken, and my dad is still following these Haitian traditions, and there's nothing stopping him from doing it. And I'm just like, what does a healthy family dynamic look like? What does it look like to hear the words "I love you"? What does it look like to hear "I'm proud of you"? Like, I believe in what you're doing. I believe in your purpose, your calling, all the things. And she was there to do that. She was there to speak life into me when I didn't believe in myself. She would literally be like, "Oh, you're gonna do this and that, and you're gonna lead worship one day, and you're gonna do all these things, and you just watch what God does with your life." And I can't even pay for lunch. Like, I don't know how God is gonna do all of that. But having someone that believed in you, that saw in you what you couldn't see in yourself, especially as you were on the journey, it was everything to me. My friends were at her house every weekend. I stayed with her for a whole summer, her and her husband and her family. I'm babysitting the kids. They ended up becoming like my little brother and sister. And you're in your teenage years, and you're being formed, and you're looking for role models at that time. And to have that, and God, like I said, God is so intentional, because He couldn't have placed like them in my life at the perfect time. So having that, it changed everything for me. It's honestly a big reason why I stand here today and have so much confidence and faith that God is going to do what He said He's going to do, because everything that she said is literally happening now.
Yeah. Wow.
There's something so powerful about people believing in us sometimes when we can't believe in ourselves, or we don't see ourselves. And sometimes it just takes one person to speak life where we feel hopeless. And so, the power of people. Erin talked about it on our last episode of her Young Life Leader. And there's been so many encounters in each person's story where somebody comes along and walks with our guests, and it is just transformational in the way that they experience Jesus and His love, in the way that He provides people for us to do life with, which is amazing. But ironically, at this time, around those middle school years when you're in youth ministry, you discover that you can sing, and that worship is a gift of yours. How did you discover that?
I would literally go to Lifeway every single week and pick out a new CD, Christian CD to listen to, because like I just loved it. I was like, I gotta have this one and then that one, and then like have this. It was just my life. So I learned I could sing around like 6th, 7th grade. No one really fully knew about it until I was in like 8th grade, and I feel the Lord like at this youth camp, because youth camp was like everything for me. Like it was just like, that was where the presence of God was the most real to me. Just these nights of surrender. There's no phones allowed. You're just in these moments, and you're in a week where you just have to do nothing but just rely on the Lord and just get to meet with Him. And there's this one year where the Lord was like, I really would love you to do the talent show. I'm like, yeah, God, but everyone else does like silly things and like juggling and dancing and things like that at the talent show. Like, what am I supposed to do? And He's like, I need you to sing a worship song. So I'm like, okay. So I get my friend to play guitar. I get one of my other friends to play like the box drum, and we go and do this talent show, and I sing from the inside out. At this point, no one's ever heard me sing like alone before. Like I've never like done that before. And there's like probably 300 kids there. Everyone comes down to the front, and in the middle of this funny and silly talent show, we just have this worship moment. And and it was insane. I remember in the middle of it, one of the most defining moments probably in my whole life with the Lord. I just hear Him say, "This is what you're going to do the rest of your life."
Wow.
It was a glimpse into what God was going to then have me do. And I mean, I feel like I still haven't seen anything yet, but I've also seen so many things that marked me. That changed a lot. I mean, after that, I went from listening to like K-Love and like CCM and a lot of that stuff to like heavy worship music. I started buying every CD that Hillsong United and Worship had. They were called Hillsong Live back then. like Elevation, Bethel, like I was just being introduced to all these different things. And I was buying the deluxe CDs because if you didn't buy them, you want to get the DVD. So I would plug them into my DVD player or like the PlayStation 2 or whatever, and then to see how they would lead worship. People were jumping around, and Matt Rock kind of has like a gun thing that he does when he leads worship. These guys are just like inspiring me, and just like being a student to these videos, there wasn't a whole lot I could learn from the people around me because I was just younger, and most of my learning came from these DVDs and these music videos of people just leading. And I was obsessed with it. It changed everything for me.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I love it. I remember Berm, back when I was in high school, a bunch of us after church, like every Sunday would go to this guy's house and we would watch the Hillsong DVDs, Shout to the Lord days. So I'm a little older than you, I will say, but oh my gosh. Yes, you had to buy the extended albums, because that's where you got the DVDs of the live worship sets. That was bringing back memories. But you've discovered this gift, you discover this passion for worship, and then you're about to graduate high school and you're figuring out what you want to do with your life. And you decide to go to a church that has a ministry school. And it wasn't really the simplest decision. There was a lot of complications that led you to that decision. Tell us a little bit about what you pursued there and what did your opportunities look like at that school?
Yeah, it was really special in those 2 years. I learned how to lead a band. So I learned how to play guitar, and that became like a really big thing. I started learning how to write songs. I didn't think I could do that, but they just started pulling it out of us. I still have recordings on my computer of like these worship songs that I had written. And I got a lot of great feedback from them. And even still, I'm like, there's a couple bridges and verses there that are probably really awesome that I may use one day. So yeah, just those things, like my theology was really sharpened. I think it was towards the end of college that I ended up buying the study Bible. And it was my first Bible that I personally purchased for myself. I just dove into the word like I'd never have. I was marking up the Gospels and the New Testament, Old Testament. That's where I learned that Genesis is my favorite book of the Bible. I was obsessed with God's word. And that like practice and that discipline really got formed there. So yeah, those are a couple of things I learned.
Amazing.
I so admire just how much you love God. You love his word. You love to sing his praises. I mean, no, but like even to discover that at such a young age, even that you are diving into his word in the way that you are, like young people have so many options for what can capture their attention, the noise that we hear. I mean, a lot of people in those prime years, like 16 to 25, are running in the opposite direction for God. And you're just like so furiously running towards God, giving him your praise, emptying out. And it just seems like you had this like insatiable appetite for just getting to know God and growing more intimately with him. And I think that's beautiful and that's to be admired, because it's not easy. And especially considering some of the circumstances that you talked about growing up. I mean, man, I remember being in college and, I laugh when you guys are talking about CDs and DVDs, because by the time I gave my life to Christ, became a believer, got saved, however you choose to put it, DVDs weren't even a thing. So I don't know about all this stuff y'all are talking about. But I remember it being like my freshman year in college, right? And as I was pursuing Christ and as I'm running towards Christ and I'm trying to learn all the things, like you said, getting a Bible and marking it up and all the things, everybody that knew Christ at that point were running away and in the opposite direction. Like, nah, my parents had me in too much church. I'm out. And you just like ran all the way towards Christ. That's dope.
I was just laughing. I'm like, listen, it's also the worship leader in us, because seriously, like, I don't know many people that will sit around and just watch worship conference DVDs if they weren't worship leaders. So there was a really specific group of people that I used to do that with. And Berm even knows some of those people. So Trust me, T, you weren't the anomaly to not be doing that. It's all good, girl.
We had iPods at that time or MP3 players or something. Like, no, but Berm, okay, so at this point you are just like on fire. You're soaking it up. You're just adding to your toolkit. You're continuing to grow this skill set to minister through the art of worship. And then you're finishing school, you're looking for your career internship, you're about to enter in quote unquote the real world, and you land some incredible opportunities to be on staff at church, and you experience so much favor in so many ways, but then also it came with a lot of hardship as well. Talk about your experience in starting to be on staff, and then really what it's been like to experience that, and some of the things and lessons that you learned as you pursued a career in ministry and in worship.
Yeah, I've learned a lot. I learned how to become a leader when I came on staff. I was a student, learning from everyone. I was being poured into by a lot of people. Whenever you have to start like things from scratch, I learned how to start things from scratch. I learned how to start a kids worship team from scratch, and then have like 2 adults on the youth worship team, but everyone else is youth kids. They're running sound, they're running lights, they're playing guitar, playing piano, they're leading worship. Kids are leading worship. We have a kids choir, like all these different things that I didn't know I could do. And like I said, the sink or swim, like we're just gonna figure it out. And by the grace of God, I was able to just find really big passions for that. That's where my passion for the next generation came from. Like I said, going back to high school where Mama Jen was just so integral into my growth. I was like, I want to be like this for someone else. I want to be a big brother or sister to someone else when I get into ministry. And that just started this growth of like, I don't want to just be a normal leader that just sees you on Wednesday and then like Monday through Sunday, I have no idea what's going on in your world. They just became like brothers and sisters to me. We'd hang out all the time. We would do trips and hangs and go to the beach and surf and all the things, and just being really intentional in their lives. I go to all their games, go to their graduations, their shows, their whatever it was, just doing actual life with them. I feel like there's so many times in ministry where we get caught up in just like the church side of it that you forget like, hey, there's actually a relationship here. It's not just about the words that you say at church, because some of those words may not stick. But what will stick is when you do life with them, when you're intentional with them, and you're calling them intentionally, and they're actually opening it up to you outside of those church walls. So learning that, seeing that, I also saw a lot of pain. I saw a lot of brokenness in the church. I saw a lot of infidelity and a lot of pastors cheating on wives and different people being overworked and underappreciated. And I saw people just being burnt out, saying yes to everything and not really creating those boundaries. I was one of them, just saying yes to all the things and feeling like, oh, if I say no, then I'm disobeying God or being disobedient in some way. Like, it can be hard to fight and wrestle with. Just because you say no, the church doesn't mean you're saying no to the Lord. You actually might be honoring the Lord with your no. And not everything in ministry is a yes. And I think just being intentional with those things, and just in seeing a lot of brokenness. I've seen a lot of friends that have been overused or been really burned in ministry walk out from the faith completely. And I've seen this idea of people falling in love with ministry instead of falling in love with the Lord, and losing their sight and faith in the Lord in that, because you weren't actually pursuing him. You were pursuing the role and the job and the identity that is ministry. Because in the last few years, like, ministry has gained quite a bit of influence, and a lot of ministries have been up with the same influence that the world has. What is actually from the Lord? And am I just carrying my own strength? And I've just seen a lot of brokenness in that, of people just putting more faith in that. And I was someone who did that. I was more in love with the things in ministry, the things of church, instead of actually pursuing the Lord and having a relationship with him. But it wasn't until 2021 that I had this burnout realization type thing where I'm like, what am I doing? It's time to get this back centered around Jesus And after I did that, I started journaling more, started this new Bible study plan that I've been doing for the last 3 years now, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I just really locked in on that, really locked in on journaling, just intentionally hearing from the Lord instead of just going like, because I think it can be really easy when you have people that are older than you and people that are further along with you in ministry. It can be easy to just go to them for every little thing, instead of actually just going to the Lord about what decision to make or what like God, are you like, or what do you want me to do here? It just became into a habit of like, oh no, like my leaders, they hear God for me, so I don't really need to go to God myself.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and once I got rid of that mentality and started hearing the Lord for myself, even people that love you and that care about you may not know God's best for you. When it comes down to your purpose and like your calling and all those things, God is the one who knows you best and he knows your heart best. And it's really scary and dangerous to place that whole calling, the thing that God has like created you to do, and place that in someone else's hands. Because it's the Lord's. He's the only one that really knows the fullness of that. And when we stop going to the Lord for it and start going to people for it, it starts getting misconstrued and starts getting broken. And then when it shatters, then we're like, God, like, what did you do? But we didn't actually go to him. So I feel like I've seen, like I said, I've seen a lot of great things. I've seen the church really rally around so many great things, people that have been broken and bringing them in and restoring them. And I've seen a lot of broken things too.
Yeah.
But in all of it, I know that the Lord is so good that his church is the bride of Christ, and he's coming back for his church. And even though people are broken, we serve a good God that restores broken people.
It's good, Berm. That's good. I was holding back tears while you were just talking because, gosh, let me tell you, just the mark of God on your life, Berm, and the way that he is growing you and has grown you and maturing you for you to understand and see the ways that we so often can put our hope in other people and in ministry. But there is a brokenness and there is a hardship when people are so directly putting their trust and all of their faith in the people or in the opportunities instead of in the very God that we were there to serve. And it's sneaky. We don't even realize that we're doing it in the midst of it. And you know, we have that in common that we've both been in ministry. TT's had ministry and is in ministry now. What we're doing in Come.Union is ministry. And we talk about this all the time on our podcast that, you know, that mantle of leadership, that it's heavy. It's a heavy thing on our shoulders. And if we're not watching out, it's really easy to fall into that trap of that mantle leadership becoming an identity of I'm the person in ministry and these are my opportunities. And we forget about the very God that we went into ministry to worship and to serve and to tell the world about. And so, John and I, my husband and I, got to walk with you through some hard seasons. And we also have gotten to walk with you in the midst of the healing and the beautiful seasons and the ways that you have sought forgiveness and the ways that you have forgiven freely. And I'm so proud of you for that. But my question for you is, in the midst of all of that, in the midst of all the hard, how did you still choose to have your faith rooted in Jesus despite that hurt? TT alluded to it earlier. So many would have these really hurtful experiences within the body of Christ and they walk away. And yet you have chosen to stay and heal. So tell us why.
I think it goes back to those stories I shared when I was a kid, having these moments in the presence of God that I couldn't explain. The Lord was with me when I was getting belittled by my parents and I was getting told that I was never going to amount to this or never going to do this or never going to do that. And the Lord met me in those moments and he gave me that peace. I can't deny that because he brought me out of that. I can't deny that the Lord wasn't faithful in those times. So when people at church hurt me or whatever, I've been in those moments of burnout and betrayal and all the things that just happens with life. I can't forget the faithfulness of God. I've felt the tangible presence of God in so many moments that there's nothing that this world I feel like could throw at me that would ever have me deny that he's not good. Because I've seen him be good too many times.
Amen.
That's good, Berm. That's so good. I love the fact that you remembered the goodness of God and you talked about how people fall more in love with the institution of church or the positions or ministry. and or with the people inside of the church more than they fall in love with Jesus. And I love how you talked about your unwavering faith in Jesus during those moments and remembering his goodness. However, it's not just about your faith in Jesus. Part of this healing journey had to look like you forgiving you and you forgiving
Yeah.
people too. How did you come to terms with that, wrestling with this? You talked about betrayal and disappointment and discouragement. How did you, on your healing journey, forgive both yourself and other people?
Yeah, I've just seen how much the Lord has brought me out of, and because of that, I've never been someone that's holds grudges. I'm not a grudge holder. I feel like the Lord is very convicting to me. It'll take a moment in the presence of the Lord for me to feel like my heart is just getting softer, and I'm really like sensitive to that. I can't run away from the Lord for long. I can't like avoid if the Lord's putting something on my heart. I cannot avoid it for long. There's been so many times where you just soften my heart, just be like, it's time to reach out to that person. And usually it always looks like me reaching out to the other person and seeking forgiveness. Even if I was the one that was wronged, I'm still going out and reaching out to them. And I don't know why it's been like that so much. But it has looked like that a lot. I just feel like reconciliation is something that's huge for me. I don't like having bad blood between people. That's just not who I am. And when it comes to all the Lord has forgiven me from, and it's like even in the scripture where he's like, those who are forgiven much, forgive much. And I feel like that is me like, I know what he's forgiven me from. I know where I should have been. I know what my roadmap of my life should have looked like. And the fact that I'm here now just shows that I'm not going to hold anyone to that. I think also it comes from the revelation of the cross, knowing all that he did for us on the cross, knowing the true weight of that, and understanding the disobedience and all the things that we did to put him like on the cross. I'm like, I can't. I understand the weight of that too much. If he did it, then we have to go and just remember that. And I don't think a lot of us want to remember that because it's hard.
Yeah, it can be hard.
Mm-hmm. You talked about you having to be the one to reach out. And there was a real hard phone call you had to make during this journey to somebody very significant in your life. What was that phone call? What was that like? How did you pursue forgiveness in that moment?
Before I had entered ministry school, there was a point in life where me and my family, especially me and my dad, were just not getting along. He wanted me out, and I was like, I could get out, I could go to school. It was just very tense, and ended up abruptly having to move out, and I was broken in that season. I felt left out alone and didn't know how to really do anything, and so I went 2 years in ministry school without really reaching out to family, sitting in this hurt and this pain from just what life had looked like growing up with my parents and all the things. But right before I was going to graduate, I had a pastor reach out to me, and he was like, I really think it's time for you to reach out to your family. And I'm like, I think you're right. And my heart was softened and it was open to it. And I ended up reaching out to my mom. We rekindled that relationship, and it was beautiful. And I remember talking to my sister. She had said how the Lord had met with my dad, and he had got saved in those last 2 years where I had lost contact, and he had gotten radically saved. His whole life was turned around. He only he got rid of all those books and things that were that like embraced Haitian religion, and he was only about the Bible and only about being in church. And he like every time he go to worship, be in worship, he would just be met with the Lord, and he would start crying, and it was just like an every time thing. I was just so proud, and so like my heart was just so open to that. So I ended up reaching out to him. My dad is not a crier. He's not a person that ever shows like emotion in that sense. And I remember hearing his voice break on the phone when I reached out to him, and he was like, "Are you still mad at me?" And it was the hardest thing I've ever heard. But I was like, "No." And in that moment, we just rekindled this relationship, and he'd been praying for this day for a long time that I'd reach back out. And in that moment, this father-son relationship was mended, and what really led off from that was just this new relationship of, all right, now we're going to say I love you in this thing. like this culture where we just haven't said that. We haven't hugged each other. These are the things that I'm going to make normal thing for our family. And since then, it's been beautiful.
Wow. And then an incredible moment as a result of that happens in a few years later, because I got to be there for it, that you were leading worship for a Good Friday service and your family got to come. So tell us about that.
Yeah. In 2022, as we're doing this Good Friday service at our amphitheater in St. Augustine, I reach out to my mom and see if they'd be willing to come down and just be there for it. And they were so pumped. And they make the trip down. My whole family, his brother, sister, mom, dad, and they all come, and we have reserved seats like for them, and it's like those special thing. And they, because I started my worship journey in middle school, after that moment, I was singing in youth ministry. So they wouldn't have saw me lead there. And when I was in high school, I went to a different church. So they never got to see me do that. And then in college, obviously, we lost contact. And then it wasn't until literally then that they would have saw me lead for the first time. And they get there and they're seeing me lead for the first time. It was just to see this full circle moment because everyone's hugging each other. We're all hugging each other. And my dad's like, I'm so proud of you. And I've not heard those words before.
Wow.
And he's seen me do what the Lord has always placed in my heart that he didn't even agree with back then. And now going from, I don't agree with what you're doing, to now I'm proud of you for doing this. It was just beautiful. One of the highlights of my life easily.
It's so crazy because I feel like we hear prodigal son story all the time, but that sounds very prodigal father. So super dope. I'm so inspired. Even like I said, Aaron on our last episode, and then hearing you, like the ways that you broke the cycle, the way that you pursued Jesus continuously, and how in your faithfulness and your pursuit, you see the healing that happens in your own family. I mean, to hear your dad say, I'm proud of you, when you hadn't received that affirmation or some of the other things that had been spoken to you, it just goes to show that like God is so redeeming. He can use anything. He can heal the brokenness. And I just think that's so beautiful that you remained faithful to God, even when it hurt or even when you were hurt. And he honored that in the most beautiful way to restore arguably one of the most important relationships, and allowed you to hear from your own father, your earthly father, how proud of you he was. And I'm sure God was smiling down and proud of you in that moment as well. So I love that you got to experience that. So I want to fast forward a little bit in your story, because you now reside in Nashville and you found this church that you absolutely love. But it was a journey. Moving to Nashville was a faith move of you moving there. How did you end up there?
Yeah, it's wild. I never thought I'd move to Nashville. Like I had in 2021, I had a couple of trips here with my friend, writing, trying to pitch these songs to labels, and we saw the favor of God like we've never seen before. I mean, we had no reason being here, and God was just opening these doors wide open. I've seen God move in a way I've never seen him move before. And towards the end of summer 2022, I just felt like there was just something shifting in my heart when it came to my time in St. Augustine. And I was then prompted by lovely John to do a 40-day fast. Just pray over God, like, what are you showing me? What are you wanting me to do? And in that, I abruptly came off staff unexpectedly at the church I was at, and then feeling broken and hurt and all these different emotions of like, I just spent 4 years here, and God, what's next? Like, this was really unexpected, but what do you want me to do? And I pressed on into that fast, and the only city and the only thing he said was Nashville. And that was the only thing. I was like, all right, God, but like, you don't want to send me to like LA or Atlanta or Miami. Like, there's not really anything for me in Nashville. So I was like, there ain't nothing for me there. And from August like 2022 until literally August 2023, he would take me then on this journey of just revealing two very specific things of why I was moving to Nashville. And neither of them had to do with me going to pursue a music career, trying to be a songwriter, trying to pursue anything like that. The only thing he said was to go, I need you to go build the church at the Belonging Co. And I need you to go serve the youth in the city. I was like, okay, that's it. And it was very vague. And I'm a person that like I've very much so been like, I'm going to do this and then that and then this. And this is what the 5-year plans are going to look like. And moving to Nashville, it got rid of all of that. It just became, you're just going to rely on me. You're just going to rely on me. And I'm going to show you what to do every time you do it. And then when this opportunity comes, you'll say yes to that. When you do that, you'll say yes to that. And I went on a year of this healing and think from Florida and all the church and all the things that I had gone through. I went on this healing journey in between August 2022 and August 2023, where the Lord softened my heart and in so many ways. And I was able to have forgiveness and healing in churches that I had left and may not have had the greatest transitions and all the things. And then I just got invited to do a lot of worship things. I was leading worship at all these youth conferences and youth events and young adults events and churches. It was like one theme that the Spirit of God was just so active and tangible in every one of these events. Different groups of people, different cities, different things, but the Spirit was exactly the same. I was like, God, what are you showing me in this? And I feel like he's just giving me language for it as of recently, because it's still happening here. He just said, like, this is what happens when you fully partner with me in worship. I can show you what I do in the room now. Not because you're not relying on your own strength, you're not relying on your own voice, you're just relying on me. And now you can see what it looks like for the Spirit of God to actually move in a room when you guys are fully partnered. And I feel like there's a lot of people in a lot of moments where people aren't fully partnered with the Holy Spirit, and they're having these amazing nights where their voice sounds really good, but the presence of God is doing a completely different thing than they are doing in the room.
Oh,
and I don't want to be, and I don't ever want to be in a room leading worship if I'm not 100% in sync with the Holy Spirit. And lately, in the last year and a half, I've been able to see this thread of just the Holy Spirit moving in these amazing ways. So I say all that to say, hey, from doing all those things, it gets me to Nashville. And even in Jacksonville, like before I left, I was leading a lot of places, leading a lot of spaces, and I was doing all the things I kind of dreamed of doing, but I still had the most peace about leaving it all behind, laying it all down, and heading to Nashville because I knew that's what he said. And I was like, I'm not going to do what he didn't say. I'm not going to be disobedient in this. Even if it's a different city, different town, I don't know nobody, I'm going to do, I have to, because that's where his peace is, and that's where his presence was in. Doing that in the last 7 months, I've seen the Lord move in ways that it doesn't even make sense. The way I settled in at the Belonging Co., the way the youth kids welcomed me so quickly. I didn't have to fight for it at all. Like, there was no striving. It was all easy. Kids, like loving youth, loving doing worship around the city with the Cove and with different worship nights and different things that I'm being asked to do, doing different music videos, being on choir and loving it at the Belonging Co. And just finding like home and people that are all my age that love me and that challenge me and that pray for me. I'm just like, God, I could have never imagined this. I could have never wrote this up the way you have already written this in only 7 months. Stepping out in faith may be scary, but you never know what's on the other side of your obedience. You never do. You never know what God can do with that step of obedience. And I feel like I'm living in that blessing of like, this is what happens when you just let it go and just give it to him. And I may not know what the Lord is doing in the season fully, but I do know that it's good. I do know that it's going to work all together according to the purpose of those who love him and those who are called according to his purpose.
So good, Berm. It's so good.
That's good.
First of all, I have to say, Berm, I am also a recipient and a product of John Olinger's asking someone to pray for 40 days, because it's how I end up in St. Augustine, and I'm a little bit bitter at him for making me pray with him. But that was the truth. That was why we were able to send you off, and we've continued to cheer you on. And even though we miss you so much, we're also like, no, you're where you're supposed to be. And so we're going to keep championing you from afar, and because we believe you're being obedient to God. So I'm really so proud of you and your story and the ways that you're continuing to lean in and to see what God's teaching you. He's teaching you a ton right now in this season. And even as we catch up, I hear time and time again you talking about how much God is teaching you, and you are just resting in that season of receiving what God has for you and how he's teaching you to serve. And you are being such an incredible son of God. And not only does your dad say he's proud of you, but I really do believe that the Father is saying he's proud of you too. So receive that, my friend. I'm really, really, really proud of you in the way that you're leaning in this season. So
Can I ask one more question, Ian? Because there's one more
Yeah, go
question
for it.
that I'm just curious about. Now that you're in Nashville, it's the first time you've been in a church, but not working for the church. And that's brought a lot of freedom and revelation and even some deeper intimacy with God for you. And it's, I would argue, as you told us, sharpened your worship, if you will. How has maybe taking a step back from being on staff given you a moment to grow even closer to God?
It's been the most humbling thing, but also the most rewarding thing, because I can't find my identity in it. Like now my identity doesn't live in being on staff or as a worship director, as anything. My name doesn't just be, it's not Berm, the worship guy. Like that's not who I am. Like I'm a child of God and I'm a son of God. But in this season, just being able to serve, just being able to help out in youth as a youth leader. I don't remember the last time I've ever just been a youth leader. Like, and last time I was just like on the load-in team where I could just like get up at 5 a.m. and I go load in with the church and pour in the kids and make paper airplanes on Easter and and just doing all these things that like I wouldn't normally get to do without the weight of feeling like I have to lead or carry something in that space. But just getting to be a volunteer has been incredible. Even a new facet of my relationship with the Lord that has just been so sweet, because he doesn't expect anything of me in that. He just always just to listen to him, receive from him, serve him wholeheartedly, and that's it. And in that, in the season of uncertainty, I've had to depend on him like I've never had to before, whether it's financially, whether it's with my purpose, whether it's with my calling. It's all just wrapped in him. And he shows you whether through his word, through prayer, through meditation, through all the things that I'm just like, that he's here. He's there. Some of my deepest moments of worship now, because I haven't been leading 1,000 times a week anymore, like some of my deepest moments of worship have come from just worshiping in my car while doing like Uber Eats, or worshiping in my room, just being on my face, like listening to an upper room set and like just being so completely sold out in that sense to him. And it's been beautiful because in past seasons I've been so busy and I've been so go that I wouldn't have had this time to even like just spend with him in that sense. So it's been really special to just worship him in that way. Yeah, it's been really
so
cool.
good.
That's so cool. Aaron and I know what it's like to be in those seasons of rest. And it's so incredible to me to think about how significant the seasons are when we feel most insignificant. And so I love that you're just experiencing worship even in a new way after all these years, and in all the ways that you've led other people in worship, that you're getting to experience a deeper level with God through worship. So that's awesome.
Well, Berm, we have a set of questions that we ask at the end of every episode, and they're kind of rapid fire questions. So our first question for you is, if you had to write the definition of reconciliation, and your definition was in the dictionary.
Yeah, I feel like it would be what would be God's version of people coming into unity with each other.
It's good.
That's good.
God's version of unity. It's good.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. And as we know, reconciliation is a journey. We all are on it. We're constantly reconciling different things or reconciling different relationships in our life. Who or what are you still wrestling to reconcile currently?
Still just wrestling in the sense of navigating what it looks like now to not fully have my identity in worship and my identity in ministry, when that was all I've known for so long. It can be easy to wrap your identity in conferences and being at these things and feeling the tension of oh, like that's who I am. I'm a ministry guy. That's all I can do. And as the months go on, as the years go on, there's still those things I'm still undoing in my heart, and having to just grieve some of those things, but also just forgive myself in those areas where I may have put those before God. So yeah.
So Berm, what do you think the Lord wants you to receive in your life right now?
So simple, but I feel like he just wants me to sit with him in the season. It's just been where in the other seasons I've just been so busy and missed like what he was doing. In this season, I feel like he's just had me sit with him. In my Bible time, it's been a lot of just sitting with him. And my worship time has just been sitting with him. And so in this season where it's been a bit of waiting, it's just been sitting with him and watch what I can do when you lay it down, when you let it go, watch what I can do. And even when it comes to worship now, like I lead more spontaneously now. And a lot of that has to do with just, most of the time I don't even play in set lists. I just kind of like, whatever the Holy Spirit gives me at the time, I just rely on him. And I'm just like, all right, God, whatever you want to do in this moment, I trust you. And I sit, and then he gives me it. And I'm like, all right, let's go. And that's just been a new facet of him that I've been able to see. He really will take the wheel on everything if you let him, even in the little things, just inviting him into it, just resting in that he has it. He's taking care of it. If the last 7 months have proven anything, like I don't have to force anything. Most of my life here has been people coming up to me and asking me and coming to me with these opportunities because I've just been open and willing to just let God have it. I'm not building connections. I'm not hustling. I'm not doing any of that. I've just been resting in him. I didn't go looking for 99.9% of the opportunities that have been given to me in the last year and a half. And because of just resting in him, he just provided. And yeah, it's been really special.
That's awesome. That's awesome. He works while we rest.
Yeah.
What do you need to release?
Control in different areas. I think control sometimes when it comes to God, are you going to show up in this? Are you going to show up at the right time? Are you going to provide? I think God's been really in this past season been showing me that he's my provider in every way. And there's been times where it's gotten to the 11th hour and I'm like, God, I do not see how you're going to do this. And he does it. And I think he's just been showing me that I just need to release control to him. And that's good. That's been hard.
Yeah, it is. Release of control. Release of control. Lastly, what do you think the Lord wants to remind you of?
I feel like it's a story in my life, but I feel like he just wants to remind me that he's faithful. That he will always be faithful. He's always been faithful. Whether it's in the little things or the big things, he's faithful, and he will always finish what he starts. If he called me here, then he has a purpose for me being here, and I can rely on that, on the faithfulness in his character. He's been showing me a lot about his character, and that if faithful is who he is, and that's what he embodies, then he's going to be faithful.
Good, Berm. I'm proud of you,
good.
Man.
Berm, your story, the words that you dropped, the wisdom that you left the Come.Union listeners with is incredible. And I'm sure they want to hear more. They definitely probably want to hear you sing. Maybe we can talk you into a Come.Union jam session, or you and Aaron can hit a little duet or something at some point. But I'm sure people would love to find you. So where can our audience connect with you?
Yeah, most of like my worship stuff and really my life is just on Instagram with Berm.MSC, Berm.music. And that's where you'll find just my life, music, like songs that I'm writing. And then you see like what God is doing through the church and friends and all the things. And then on TikTok as well. And that's just mainly just worship stuff.
Sweet.
That's awesome.
Sweet. Well, Berm, thank you so much for being a guest with us today. I'm so grateful. And yeah, you guys check Berm out. Check my friend Berm out, because he's pretty incredible. And we can't wait to see how God continues to move and the things that he continues to provide for you. So thanks for being here, friend.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank
Love
you
you guys.
so much, Berm. And on that note, let the reconciliation begin.
Thanks so much for listening today. Want to stay up to date with our episode? Then subscribe to our podcast and newsletter on our website, Come.Union.com. Follow us on Instagram at Come.Union. Rather watch our podcast? Then subscribe to our YouTube channel at Come_Union. We are so glad you're a part of this community.